All right, we're going to start off by going over the somatic senses. So these are also considered, so the somatic senses are also considered sort of the general senses. There are general sense receptors of the skin that allow us to touch, allow us to feel touch, pressure, temperature, and pain. Touch, pressure, and vibration rely on mechanoreceptors that respond to the stimuli that stretch or compress or twist their membrane. There are different mechanoreceptors that occur in the skin. Mechanoreceptors, like I said, they detect that touch, they detect that pressure. So we have quite a few. There are Merkel's discs, so that would be these right here. These right in here. Our Merkel discs are responsible for touch. These are free nerve endings that end on Merkel cells, which detect very, very light touch. Meissner corpuscles, on the other hand, these over here, are going to be for detecting pressure. So Meissner's corpuscles, these are encapsulated nerve endings. They tell us where we have been touched, and they detect sort of that more dense pressure. We also have Pacinian corpuscles, that would be these. These are found a little bit deeper. These detect pressure a little bit further down. So these are layers of tissue surrounding a nerve ending. Now they sense first. They are the first to sense pressure and vibration. Ruffini corpuscles. These are going to be encapsulated nerve endings. They respond to continuous pressure. They let us know, hey, this is still there. They just notify us of ongoing pressure. So those are our mechanoreceptors. We do have other types of receptors found in our skin. Things like our thermoreceptors. They respond to temperature changes. Those are going to be specialized free nerve endings located just below the skin on the surface. There's going to be one type that responds to warmth and one type that responds to cold. So we don't have like a single temperature receptor that responds to all changes in temperatures. We have specifically hot temperature receptors and cold temperature receptors. Now these do adapt pretty rapidly. This is why you can kind of get used to being outside in the heat. You can get used to temperature changes, like when you take off a shirt or put on another shirt. You can adapt pretty quickly to changes in temperature. So those are going to be the mechanoreceptors. We do, however, have pain receptors. Pain receptors are actually considered chemoreceptors. They're not responding to necessarily the presence of pain. They're responding to the presence of damage, skin damage specifically. So when tissues are damaged by toxins or mechanical, thermal, or electrical stimuli, they release chemicals called prostaglandins, which bind to the nociceptors and notify us of that damage. Aspirin and ibuprofen reduce pain by inhibiting the enzymes that synthesize prostaglandins. So aspirin and ibuprofen, they don't help heal you faster. They don't stop the problem. They just stop you from feeling it. So they stop the synthesis of those prostaglandins. So it's not necessarily a good thing to just pop an aspirin or an ibuprofen if you start to feel pain somewhere. It's important to figure out why you're feeling that pain and make sure that you are addressing that issue and not just dulling the pain. Example, I get very frequent headaches. Daily, of course, but sometimes multiple times a day I get pretty severe headaches. So typically my first response is not to reach for Tylenol, but to instead check in. Have I had enough water? Have I had enough caffeine? Have I had too much water, too much caffeine? When was the last time I ate? What did I eat? Things like that. There are other things to check in first before I just try and kill the pain, because I want to actually address the issue. Pain is your body's way of notifying you that something is wrong. So it's important to address that issue before you start shutting down that message. So pain receptors. Now the interesting thing about pain receptors is that they're not always accurate. It is possible to stimulate nociceptors in internal organs, or stimulation of nociceptors in the internal organs can be felt as pain on the skin also. So you can actually feel pain in other areas than just that general location. So, for example, pain from the heart is often felt in the left shoulder and arm. This is why one sign of a heart attack is pain or a tingling sensation in your left arm. nerve impulses from nociceptors in internal organs can cross-reference with neurons also receiving impulses from the skin, and that's where we get that referred pain. All right, so you should be able to describe how the body uses the proprioceptors to indicate, you know what, we actually didn't really get into proprioceptors. I do want you to at least read over that section in the textbook, but you don't need to worry or focus on that necessarily for our homework. Just make sure that you're aware of how proprioceptors work, especially if you're planning on going on to take other anatomy physiology classes. But you should be able to summarize the role of each of those different cutaneous receptors, those mechanoreceptors that we talked about. And then you should also explain, why is the sensation of pain so important for the maintenance of homeostasis? Why do we feel pain? What is the purpose of that? So take a little bit of time to review that. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns.